Last night in council chambers, residents sounded off, many of whom said the water was discolored for several days of the week. Sells admitted to selling cocaine near Jensen Playground on Wheeling Island a year ago this month. An accident involving trucks on Route 22 tied up traffic this morning for well over an hour.
You see the crowd is getting excited back there. We saw someone waving their hands around. It's definitely a holiday spirit in the air. Everything's lit up. That's what's really fun about Jamboree in the Hills is you have some of the big names that you hear them on the radio all the time, and then you hear these up-and-coming artists. Then what happened is they had to find the victim himself, and so that led them to this alley behind me. This was a massive operation, and it led to 100 people being charged with 756 charges, hit a telephone pole and then a wall, spun around and down that embankment into that stream. But the question is, where is the money to fund those projects? And that's the question that 1st District Delegate Randy Swartzmiller is asking the governor himself. To demonstrate the power of this camera, the team put a $5 bill in the instrument's grasp, and something we can't see with our plain eye is suddenly visible on this screen. And there's an easy way to make sure your clippings don't end up in the street at all. Just turn your mower around so they're shooting back into your own yard. Augmented reality uses your current environment and superimposes an image like you see here. For items the tower can't accommodate because of size or weight, you still scan your barcode, but you pick up at these lockers. I asked local law enforcement to take us into their world, to talk us through what happens when they face an armed suspect. This gives us a new perspective on policing, an example of restraint under fire.
He has a gun underneath his sweatshirt. He's intoxicated, and he's being a little belligerent with the patrons around there.
This is the call that sent Steubenville police racing to Maxwell Avenue. It's October 27th, 2014, a Monday.
I'm staring in the car, and I have a young child in my car.
Something's about to happen outside of the Pleasant Food Mart.
He's wearing blue jeans, a black hooded sweatshirt. He has a gun.
Immediately, the dispatcher takes control of the city's surveillance cameras. There's a lot of activity. People coming and going, others lingering. Who has the gun? The dispatcher swings the camera across the street. There are more people gathered there. He's looking for a black hoodie with an image of a white gun. The dispatcher hones in on the group. No one matches the description. He directs the camera back to the parking lot.
Hey, right there.
Finds him, watches, and waits. Steubenville officers approach from both sides. Seconds later, the man's arms are held, the gun is removed. He is not harmed, the crowd is safe, and so are the police officers.
Whoever called gave the most perfect description I could ask for.
Patrolman Ryan Lula and Patrolman Wes Crawford were there that day. It was a call when everything went right, but there's no way of knowing when things could turn.
Try to think things through before you get there so you can go into it with a plan.
Both Lula and Crawford have had close calls on the job. A few years ago, Lula wasn't hit or hurt when chasing a robbery suspect, but he could have been.
I grabbed the back of his sweatshirt. He turned around, had a gun in his hand, and fired several rounds at me and another officer who had showed up during the foot pursuit.
Crawford was face to face with a suspect who pulled out a gun, then attempted suicide.
You've got to fall back on that training and remain tactical at all times in our job.
In 2017, the state required Ohio officers to have at least 26 hours of training on the topics of wellness, legal updates, defensive tactics, trauma, intermediate weapons, and firearm qualifications. The training, while invaluable and potentially life-saving, cannot explicitly outline when and how officers are to respond to armed suspects or when to shoot.
I think the main thing that people need to understand is not one of us ever want to have to be forced into a lethal force encounter.
Under the Fourth Amendment, officers are expected to use force in an objectively reasonable manner.
We're always impressed with the restraint that our officers show.
Jefferson County Prosecutor Jane Hanlon understands the dangers of police work and says cooperation is essential.
Even if you think that you have been wronged, even if you think you shouldn't be in this position, when an officer orders you to stop and certainly orders you to show your hands, it's essential that you do that, because when people don't comply with the commands, the first response of the officer is to wonder why not.
When officers get in their cruisers, they can only wonder what their day will hold. Their families left to hope there are no surprises.
I love you is the last thing I say before I leave and the first thing I say when I get home.
Laying it all on the line for the city they love.
I come to work every day and hope to make a difference I mean, that's what makes me the most proud, is I get to come and serve a community that I feel like has our backs.
With this special assignment, I'm Jessica Haberley for News 9.
When you hear DOH project, you might think, great, anything to help the roads. Many like this one are cracked, have potholes, but this project didn't help the roads. It was a paving job at the DOH headquarters.
Compare this view from Mobile Track 9 to this one from Skyview 9. At the surface, it's the pothole-ridden Route 2 drivers contend with daily. From the air, we see the improvements just made to the DOH headquarters in Hancock and Brooke counties.
If they've got the money and the time and the resources to pave the parking lot for them to park their trucks, why can't they fix our roads? And to me, it's a slap in the face to every taxpayer in the county.
Jim Earhart of New Cumberland brought his concerns to News 9. He said while he understands money is budgeted for different projects, roads need to be the priority.
They force us to make sure that our cars are inspected and safe to be on the roads, but they won't do anything to make the roads safe for our cars.
We showed pictures of the project to Don Porter of Chester.
They must have more pull than I do.
To Ed Huff of New Cumberland.
They could have fixed our road by the time they took to patch that.
And to West Virginia State Delegate Randy Swartzmiller.
Actually, looking at those pictures was very shocking. I mean, it really is. I mean, I just don't understand how anyone could have followed through with that project, knowing the condition of these roads.
We came to check out a particularly troublesome spot, according to drivers, right outside the Newell Bridge. And while we were here, we did run into DOH crews that are fixing a big pothole on Route 2 headed south.
We also passed the crew doing some other patchwork along Route 2, and the DOH is currently paving Pennsylvania Avenue in Weirton from Cove Road to 22nd Street. I talked to a spokesperson for the DOH on Tuesday regarding the headquarters paving project, and no statement or comment was returned by my Thursday deadline.
If this doesn't sit well with you, the local folks I talked to encourage you to make your voice heard in Charleston. Reporting in Hancock County, Jessica Haberley, News 9.